Minnesota, and I had no idea what I was going to do, and I still don't know what I'm going to do with my life. But I knew that I couldn't sit behind a desk. I don't even own a desk. And, growing up, I thought, really early on, I figured you're your own personal brand. All of you are. And protect that at all costs. That's very, very important. So I went to school, I was a college athlete, played cool sports. I'm not telling you that for a flex, but it'll make sense here in a second. So as I went through school, trying to figure out what I'm going to do, I was like, I can't be a stockbroker. I can't, because at the time, there was no internet, there was no tech. It was going to be you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a real estate agent. None of that was interesting me at all. So I'm thinking, geez, what am I going to do? Well, I have to actually interject here really quick, because Luca has beautiful photos of his family. I actually just, this morning, this would be my identical twin boys just ran in the NCAA championships in Sacramento this morning. So, that's 40 on the left, and that's Rowan on the right. They're actually Division I scholarship athletes for Pepperdine. So just south of here. So that was my proud dad moment. I had to throw that in. I threw it in like 30 seconds ago. So anyway, what I did to try to get this experience, to build my own personal brand, and I stress to all the students here, is I had a lot of internships. I worked construction one summer. Brutal. I didn't want to do manual labor. I worked at a bank. I called my parents and I've been in college for 9 years, so this is what the working world looks like. I can't do that. Worked in an ad agency. I thought I was going to be a copywriter. I thought that would be the least painful job at the time. I worked for an airline. These were all internships I got in college. I worked for a professional ice hockey team. I said, geez, I'm still not finding it. I'm not finding it. I'm the only one in my family without a master's degree. So I went to this event, and this was 30 years ago, this summer, called Warped Tour. They've actually just revived it. And it was this intersection of everything that spoke to me. Music, art, action sports. And I went to this. It was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be in action sports. How am I going to get in action sports? That excites me. So I'm thinking, how am I going to get this? How am I going to get this? Well, at the time, because there was no tech, you had to write letters. I know it's hard for some people to understand. You actually pulled a pen out and wrote a note. And I would hit these companies, and because I thought I was going to be a copywriter, I would take their ads, and I would try to make them funny and make them laugh. Well, there was one brand in particular that I was so enamored with. So I would take their ads, and I kept saying to the woman who was their VP of marketing, my brother, I'm the youngest of 4. My brother said, never go through human resources, always go after the person you want to work for, or you want to learn from. So I kept sending letters, and the woman kept calling, and she picked up the phone one day. And she goes, hey kid, it's you, great. I got all your letters. Listen, my house burned down. I've got to go to Europe in 3 hours. So I mailed her a smoke detector. There it is, sorry. So I mailed her a smoke detector, and she called me and said, you are absolutely nuts. I got to talk. So she flew me out, and I got a job. So from that, the program was called Airwalk. It's not real around anymore. Speaking of protecting your brand, this was my MBA on how to do business. Really, it's a longer story, but the distribution strategy, a lot of things that trying to do everything for everyone. I started at the lowest part of the brand, a merchandiser. I would go to the stores, merchandise the shelves, make sure that I was also studying what the competitors were doing. Again, being a sponge. So we do these meetings, these are called line reviews, where they bring out the product, and I go, our product stinks because this, and this, and this. And they said, oh really? Okay, Mr. Tough Guy, if you're that into it, how would you build it for us? So I morphed from that to being a snowboard boot developer. So that's me in Hong Kong. I would spend 3 weeks a month in Asia, Taiwan, building snowboard boots. And the reason why I got the nickname Stix is my legs are really skinny, and I would wear the boots around the factory, and I looked like a stork, because I had these skinny legs with shorts, and I got the nickname Stix. So it's not actually a cool nickname, really. It's making fun of my skinny legs. So that's the move. So from that, I was able to be around music, art, the action sports, everything that the brand played in. There's a band, I don't know if anyone would recognize this is, I would be absolutely impressed. But this band is actually still relevant to this day. If you look closely on their feet, the shoes, those are Airwalk shoes. So when I was in Asia, because I grew up in Minneapolis and around punk rock, I said, we need to put shoes on bands. So I would go on these tours, and I would put shoes on bands when I wasn't traveling overseas. Maybe some of you recognize him. He was our marquee athlete at the time, Tony Hawk. arguably the biggest name skateboarding ever. I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to come back to the band. This band, actually, in the early days, that's Blink-182. If you've ever heard of it, the rap transfer now. That look how young they are. That's 1997, I believe it is. So there's Tony. I'm going to come back to him. And as I said to you about protecting your own brand, think about that. You don't want to burn bridges. Keep these relationships going. This will all make sense. I'll close the loop. Frederick Sarbell, snowboarder, I don't expect you to know who he is. But through this, next thing you know, this brand comes calling. No one had ever heard of it. This is 24 years ago. This brand called Red Bull. And they said, hey, how would you like to be one of our first sports marketing managers? We're breaking into North America. I'm like, what is Red Bull? I have no idea what you're talking about. Said, hey, we're going to do it different. 8-ounce can, $2. Retail was like, how dare you sell a can for, an 8-ounce can for $2? But Red Bull's like, no, we're going to think bigger than that. How are we going to make noise? How are we going to put ourselves on the map? How are we going to grow the business? So I actually think, I still hold the record for the biggest expense report ever turned in. I actually charged that to my credit card, and they paid for it as a snowcat. And you may say, well, why do you have your own snowcat? So I currently live, I've been in Colorado for 25 years, mom's Colorado. The idea was, I would take this cat and go not at a resort and take people up the mountains, whether you're snowshoeing or skiing or snowboarding, and they would have a Red Bull on their way out. So they had a positive experience, positive usage occasion, and it started working. It started working. People started talking about this brand. Wow, you're doing things. You're doing it in places, instead of just spraying and pray, as they say, we were doing it in spot work. Like, wow, I'll remember that. I remember that. That's brand building. When you start talking about a brand, word of mouth is the most valuable thing in the world. How do you get that? This word of mouth, to get people talking about it. So if you look very closely here, see this right here? See that right there? It's a little indentation right there. You're like, what is that? That's a half pipe. So I was tasked with working with this athlete by the name of Shaun White. Maybe you've heard of him. And the idea behind it was typical Red Bull. Is, you know what, we're gonna bring him on Vancouver 2010 Olympics. So the idea was, we built him his own private half pipe in the backcountry of Colorado. We had to take helicopters to bring everything in via helicopter, so he could train privately for the 2010 Olympics. But in Red Bull fashion, they actually documented the whole thing and made a documentary called Project X that aired during the Olympics. So since trifecta, he won the gold medal, he was able to stick all the tricks that he landed, and then on top of that, Red Bull had a documentary. This is a few visuals of him training, and then here's we got a foam pit at the end, so we could practice inverted tricks and not worry about getting injured. No other athlete could do that. Anyone. Next thing you know, my athletes started asking me, said, we want some Pabst Blue Ribbon. For those of you who don't know, this brand's been around since 1844. You're a company. And I never understood. I had all the money in the world to get my athletes, and they would literally just request this beer. I'm like, what that beer? I hadn't seen it in years. I'm from the Midwest. And I started realizing there was something that Pabst had that Red Bull didn't, and that was street credibility. People thought it was cool. There was no ad agency behind it. It was all word of mouth. It was in the right places. Music, art, action sports, culture. So I went over there, that's me at beer school in Milwaukee. I had to go learn to make beer. It's funny, I don't like drink beer, but the brand was fascinating to me. What do? We build community. Now, I'm not by any means saying alcohol builds community. I'm just saying that, hey, that's part of it. A lot of events, gatherings, whatnot. And we started building it. We started bringing people from all walks of life when they're doing events all day, of course. And it was wonderful. Like we said, we went literally from kind of like a dormant brand to almost $1 billion brand. So with that, back to Red Bull, if you look at this and even follow action sports, that's Pabst Pastrana, if you've ever heard of Nitro Circus. He's a friend of mine. He's wearing all that Pabst stuff, belt buckle, wristband. He's a Red Bull athlete. People started tattooing it on their body. And that's pretty much as high it goes with the brand. You're going to be wearing it around the rest of your life. But if you look at the bottom here, this is actually from what's now called Palisades. Literally, they put a sign up because people were getting anxiety because they ran out of Pabst. It says, out of PBR, but it's okay, you're going to be all right. Just take a deep breath, let it out, and order another beer. We will have more soon, but today ain't the day. Boy, when you got to calm down a crowd, again, you know you're onto something. So, as the story goes, the rebirthplace of Pabst was Portland, Oregon. Basically, just there's no real reason why. There's no magic wand way to make your brand relevant. So we did a little love letter to Portland and did our own festival called Project Past. Brought in some really big names. Just as it made it very cheap, made food, beer, everything very, very cheap and attainable. One of the artists that I took this picture actually is Ice Cube, which by the way is one of the nicest guys you ever met. Total business, really cool. So from there, back to snowboarding. The guy there on the left of me is Mike Cesario, the founder and visionary of the brand Liquid Death. And he had found out, he followed what I'd done at Red Bull and at PAX and said, hey man, I've got this idea. Canned water. And I'm like, I'm all ears, man. Like, what do you think? Literally, hear me out. It was just him and his partner. He goes, why is it that everything that is bad for you has the most fun? Why is that? Let's have some fun. The other thing is being sober is cool. It is. And so having that can in your hand, think about that. Right or wrong, you're a little bit more part of the group. And I thought, oh man, the gloves are off. We're going to have some fun here. So the idea we basically said every morning was, let's make sustainability and drinking water 50 times more cool. How are we going to do that? Remember when I mentioned Blink-182 earlier? Top left corner, that's Travis Barker, who's the drummer for Blink-182. He wasn't in that photo that I showed you. He's an investor in Liquid Death. Again, relationships, building your own personal brand, growing, helping the brand grow. Next thing you know, it's like, wow, live music. People like to be out, especially post-pandemic. What can we do? We ended up partnering with Live Nation. They became an investor in Liquid Death. We did these country clubs here, where you could get out of the fray. All you need to do is give us your email and your cell phone, so we actually have your contact info. And you could go in and get out of there, get a glass of water, get a tattoo maybe. We actually had a string quartet playing heavy metal in there. It was a way to get out. It was a great experience. Great, again, growing the brand. The other piece was sustainability. And we knew if we were going to wave this flag, we were going to have to be legit about it. You know, I won't go through every bullet here, but a lot of what you're reading in the media, it's not recycled as much as you think it is. It's not profitable to recycle. And we wanted to call people out on that. You know, like, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. So we joined up with a few charitable partners, one of which I'm actually an advisor for this one, Pangea Seed. They do through ocean conservation through art. I was lucky my mother worked in the museum for 30 years, so I've been surrounded by art my whole life. First project has nothing to do with Liquid Death branding. It's just to build wells for impoverished places that need water. And lastly, 5 Tires, which is really every month, which scoops plastic out of the ocean. So, having said that, we thought, all right, let's have some fun with this. Mike had figured out that if you put enough postage on something, the U.S. Postal Service will mail it. So, we had the idea of, well, the big soda companies are fantastic at polluting. What if we provided prepaid postage labels? So if you found whatever brand, I won't even give the respect to their names, on the ground, you can put it on there and the bottle or can will go back to their mail room. See, next thing you know, the soda companies were so angry because they started eating all their trash. And it was our way of just poking the bear, so to speak. Having some fun and you know, picking the fight, but having fun with it. And needless to say, they weren't real happy. So this is the humble beginnings of Liquid Death. That is the first trade show booth. 10 by 10. That coffin is a real coffin. We got off like Facebook Marketplace. It's pretty gross. But that was our cooler. That really was our cooler. But that's it. That's the humble beginnings of Liquid Death, right there. Fast forward back to my Airwalk days. When I was giving shoes out, I used to give shoes to this band called Metallica. Maybe some of you have heard. Well, Lars, second from left there, is basically their businessman. He had discovered Liquid Death at a festival and said, I want to be a part of this. No kidding. We couldn't even be in the stadiums where they're playing. He didn't care. He put our name on their worldwide tour flyer. And those kind of things don't happen just by accident, right? Building your network, being there, like your own personal brand, their personal brand, they can come together. Wiz Khalifa, so you've heard, very successful artist. He's an investor. On the right there is the comedian Bill Burr. That's a kind of a sketchy cell phone shot from him at Fenway Park. A lot of music you get. Bert Kreischer, a lot of these comedians want to invest in Liquid Death, want to go drink, and just they can walk on stage. So here's a couple years ago, the Colorado Avalanche, my team won the Stanley Cup. And I was able to get them water when they went to the Children's Hospital to let kids drink out of the Stanley Cup. Which that was pretty cool to be able to do that. That's actually one of their alumni players. But that was for the kids. So, Tony Hawk. Look at that, that's Tony. So we did a program with Tony. He became an investor in that, where we did some boards with him, where we basically took blood out of him, mixed it in the paint, and screen printed these boards and sold them for charity. There's a whole, you can YouTube this, of the video itself. But right there is a artist by the name of Lil Nas X. He had made the news because he made his own shoe. It was basically a copy of a Nike shoe with his own blood in it, and got in a lot of trouble. And literally, this broke the internet. He basically said, well, how does this fool get to do this and I can't? He said, I'll take a photo of him. And he did that and it really blew up. And that was all to our networks. It was all to our friends. We didn't plan when that happened. But if you look up Tony Hawk Bloodboard, you can watch the whole video. I know we're limited on time here. So, there's no room in this world for hate, okay? That's not it. But with tongue in cheek, you really are onto something if you have some haters. So, we actually produced 3 albums. A punk album, a metal album, another, all from hate comments from the internet. So, we know that the haters gave us all of the ammunition we needed to make 3 albums. So on that note, we thought, we have people who are really going to hate it. Let's put their money where our mouth is. And did this video where it's basically you define our product, you say we're the worst water ever, then we'll give you $1,000 if you don't, you're going to get tased. So
literally the worst water I've ever tasted.
Can we go ahead and get him wired up? We're just going to put that around the stand. Make sure it's up all the way. Okay, cool, thanks. Okay, go ahead.
I'm not noticing too big of a difference.
That one didn't taste like anything.
Definitely gonna have to double back.
Oh man.
That the first one's pretty tasty.
Like the differences are very, very subtle.
So I guess worst one. Pick the worst water.
Okay.
I think it was really, one of these was really bad, but there was
I think this is looking good.
All right. Oh man.
You were wrong.
Yeah, very wrong.
I guess Liquid Death isn't the worst water, right?
It's not bad. I guess I was wrong. Not the worst water I've ever tasted.
Sorry. Our body house product now.
Officially not the worst water 2 guys from the internet have ever tasted.
we're good. But I want to leave on that note. Every day, be a sponge, learn, take care of your personal brand. But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.